Hello, PWOC ladies. This is Mari Yarber, your historian, and just want to welcome you to our legacy moment. And just wanted to say I'm so excited about Sherry's announcement earlier this week that we'll be getting closer to in-person things happening at Fort Jackson with our Christian education and how that impacts PWOC. And we just look forward to hearing Sherry's announcements in the future about what we can do moving forward. So I hope that you have joined our virtual Bible studies that we're having. And if you have not and would like to, please email us at fortjacksonpwoc@gmail.com, and that's Fort spelled the word out, F-O-R-T. We would love for you to join one of our Bible studies that we're having. I was going to talk to you just a little bit about some things that happened at a recent board meeting where we were just talking about how God has woven these legacy moments together just like a tapestry. And it started out with Sherry's vision of really trying to connect the body of PWOC with the history of PWOC. And then my interviews with ladies that have been involved in PWOC and just shared so many of their experiences. And then my own personal devotional time. The Lord has just kind of opened up and spoken to me about things, and it's just really been a blessing. So that's kind of how this has all developed. But I wanted to kind of give you a big picture of where we're going with legacy moments, where we've been and where we're going. And the main purpose of all this is to celebrate and just talk about the faithfulness of God and how he has been faithful throughout history with our organization. So we're just going to do a little bit of an overview of our legacy moments and what you can expect with that. So there are three legacies, our kind of three prongs of our legacies that our legacy moments tie in with this year. So we have ladies learning the legacy, ladies living the legacy, and ladies leaving a legacy. That's a lot of L's, so I get my tongue twisted a little bit with that. So that's just an overview of kind of what these legacy moments are and how we are developing them, and we hope that they have been a blessing to you throughout this year. So all of the legacy moments, we hope that they are focused and inspired by these three things that we'll be talking about. So the first one we're going to be talking about is ladies learning the legacy of PWOC. And so, you know, we've been celebrating the 65th year of PWOC and the longevity of our organization. And if you've watched some of the legacy moments, we've talked about some of the history and just how God has blessed our organization over the years. And if you see my little plant here, my little sapling of a tree, we can see the roots. And so I think that the tree is a real appropriate reminder of our legacy and what were our roots and what do they look like and how's that important today? How does that impact us as PWOC moving forward? And also, when we talk about the roots, we talk about how did it start? Some courageous and faithful women. They loved the Lord, they loved one another, and they were trying to minister to those around them. And things that have stood the test of time, being a Christ-focused organization. We've talked about our aims, and I want to mention that I have had some wonderful interviews, especially with three ladies today. I will be using some quotes from some of my interviews today with Mitzi Roberts and Tamala Johnston and Rosemary Sniffen. These ladies have graciously talked to us and given us about their experiences in PWOC. And so a lot of what I'm going to share with you today are things from these ladies' experiences. And Rosemary just really hit it on the head about aims. She said, you know, they're not just pretty words, but they apply in everything that we do in PWC. And I have found that to be true, that to be written so long ago, that they have stood the test of time in everything I can testify in our board. We really go back to the aims and make sure that we're being true to the goals of the original goals of our organization. And while our organization is not perfect, no organization with people it will be perfect, but we're built on that solid foundation and our roots are strong. We want to make sure that the purpose of this remains the purpose of the legacy moments, to recount and remember God's faithfulness and how he's provided for us. And we'll learn he's provided back in our history, but not just in history, but today. And to bring that forward to today and stand on that faithfulness. And I think that you'll find that that's very scriptural. In the Old Testament, we read a lot about the children of Israel celebrating those Old Testament feasts. And that was during those celebrations, it was a time of worship, a time of remembrance, and a time of celebration. So when we're looking back at our roots and we're remembering that past, we can bring that forward to today and celebrate those things today and allow them to challenge us as we move forward. And so the next one is Ladies Living the Legacy of PWC. And so you see our young tree has grown a little bit and is beginning to produce leaves. And so when we say ladies living the legacy, that word living has that connotation of something that's active, an action, something that's happening in the present. And so we always want to ask ourselves, are we currently living in a manner in step with that motto? We are workers together for Christ. And that's a challenge, and I think a question that we have to ask ourselves constantly. One of the things that these ladies said in their interviews is that PWC was always that place that they would find their first friend, or that first place of connection at each move that they made. And I think that we have to make sure that we're still that person. We're still that organization where someone can find that first friend and that first connection. And I want us to continue to be that way. I know it was that way for me at every move that I made. And are we being an influencer one to another of our spiritual walks? Are we having an impact and encouraging one another? One of our ladies was so authentic with me, talking about how that someone was persistent. They kept inviting her to PWC and encouraging her. And so she was so open, saying how that had changed her life, because people were just actively pouring into her life and encouraging her and encouraging in her walk with the Lord. And I think that we cannot forget the uniqueness of the opportunity that we have, both in the spiritual element, that we are a place where we can build people up in the Lord spiritually, but we also offer something that a lot of places don't, which is that military connection, that place where we're able to encourage one another. We have walked the paths that others are walking, and we can uniquely relate to them and give understanding in places where maybe their own family can't relate to them if they've not had an experience in the military, but yet we as their PWC sisters can relate to those unique situations that we find ourselves in the military. And also we've had personal testimonies of salvation and impacts of the legacy currently in PWC in people's lives. And so our last one is Ladies Leaving a Legacy of PWC. So our tree has roots, and they are deep, they are wide and broad, and our tree trunk has grown, and we have fruit on our tree. So we've gone from roots to fruits. And that's something I borrowed from my friend Mitzi Roberts. I loved how she described PWC as a place to go from roots to fruits. And I think that's just a beautiful picture of the roots that we have in those 65 years of heritage of ministering to one another and being workers together for Christ, and then seeing those fruits and building on that solid foundation that we have. And we have to decide as a current body what kind of legacy we want to leave in PWC as we write our part of the history. I love what Mitzi shared with me. She talked about how that initially she felt like as a young Christian, everyone in PWC would know more about the Bible than her. And she was intimidated and she felt inadequate. But what was really a blessing was hearing her talk about that PWC became a safe place for her to learn about leadership and service and how those qualities she was able to develop and how she was able to grow in her spiritual walk and in her ability to be a good leader. And all of that came from her experience through PWC. I've loved talking to her and hearing about her story. And I know many of you have stories that are similar. We would love for you to share those with us anytime that you would like. Please message us on our Facebook page or email us. The last thing I want to talk about here is choosing to serve despite our feelings of inadequacy or a stage of life. For me, this is really interesting or even almost a sad thing. My very first PWC, our president was battling cancer. And I was just amazed at her grace and her poise under pressure. And she chose to serve, even though it was a difficult time in her life. I'm sure that you've seen people live this out. I know that it was difficult for her, but she lived it out in an authentic way. She didn't hide her struggle from us. She lived it out week by week. She was her true self, good days and bad days. And we as a body were able to minister to her in different ways. And so that was just a blessing to me and also just inspiring for me to watch this godly woman to lead in such a difficult time during her life. And I know we all have stages and seasons in our lives, and many of the ladies I've interviewed have talked about there were times when they were able to be in leadership in PWC, and there were other times when their children, some people were not able to serve when their children were smaller or when their husbands had different kinds of positions and they had other responsibilities. But there's always a season for you to serve in PWC. There's a place for you, and I hope that you will be open to how God wants to use you. I know that the Lord has called me to do different things in PWC over the years, and I have been blessed each time. I want to leave you with a quote or scripture from the Bible. I love this picture. I'm just going to brag a minute. My daughter dabbles in photography, and she took this photo in my backyard in Virginia when we were stationed there, and it just speaks to me. And this is the verse that she put with her photo, and I think that it goes beautifully with our roots to fruits and the growth that we see in PWC and our desire to leave a legacy and how God can empower us to do that. So I want to read for you Jeremiah 17, 7-8. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when the heat comes, for its leaves remain green and is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. Well, ladies, I hope that you have been blessed by this today. I know that I have been blessed just to be with you and encourage you and your encouragement to us. And we just pray that you have a great week and that you will get involved with PWC as we move forward. Have a great week, ladies. Bye.